I'm Michelle.
And I'm Katherine.
And we're here at the Healthy Hurried Human podcast,
where we talk about keeping pace in a world that never slows down. Welcome back to the Healthy Hurried Human podcast. We're happy to have you here. I'm Katherine.
I'm Michelle.
And we're going to talk today about an interesting story that Michelle has, and a little bit about Velveeta cheese. Is that right? Which makes me so happy because over Thanksgiving, I made snacks. My niece actually made it. Shout out, Palmer. Thank you. A good old 80s classic of Rotel dip. Remember the cans of Rotel and Velveeta?
It is not old.
Listen, but I remember when it came out in the 80s, we thought Velveeta cheese was the answer to everything. I think my mom has a recipe from some friends of ours of Velveeta cheese and apples in a dish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Velveeta was everything. I just find it interesting that we are still so into Velveeta, and it is shelf stable cheese. I don't think it has any cheese in it.
Maybe that's why we're still into it.
So we are talking about Velveeta, but Velveeta versus Brie cheese, and it's really based on a story that I shared with you that I really love about Trader Joe's, because I love you love Trader Joe's. I like going to Trader Joe's, but I read the story about his origin story. And what's funny to me, I was like, oh, Joe is actually a real guy. I thought Trader Joe's was just, a nickname for something or somebody. But Joe, who started Trader Joe's, his origin story is that he had a failed business that he ended up turning into actual Trader Joe's. And he decided that he wanted to be able to sell. And it was in the late 70s, early 80s, so Velveeta was probably, getting its height. He wanted to sell Brie cheese for cheaper than people could get Velveeta. And so he found the loopholes for imports so that he could import these large amounts of Brie cheese from France. And because he could get it at such high quantity, he could actually literally sell Brie for cheaper than people could get Velveeta. Is part of the story. But one of the things that he did, he wanted to bring a lot of value to their customers. And so he wanted to do that in a way that didn't cost a whole lot, and it could be done fairly quickly. He created the now I'm forgetting. I want to say it's the flyer, the Trader Joe flyer. High Flyer. There's a name to it. And basically it was his newsletter about the products and how the customers could use the various products. And there would be recipes and highlights. And that was his way of bringing a lot of value very quickly and in an inexpensive way to himself, to the customer. And so we're talking about that today, Katherine, because we have created something that can bring clarity to our target customer, which is medium-sized businesses, when it comes to consulting. And what we know is that leaders don't want a giant consulting contract, especially now with the economy. This is not something that they want to, a lot of times when you enter into a consulting contract, it's for a long time, and it's usually going to be pretty expensive. And I don't know that businesses are putting the value on it that they should. And so what's happening is it's getting nixed altogether. We're just going to take it out. And so we have created something that is going to bring the clarity without the risk. Consulting companies want the consulting, or organizations want consulting, but they don't want to be married to it. But they do want the clarity. And we've created something that does that. We have created the Healthy Hurried Human Lab and the Appraisal. And what organizations can get, a team or a department, is they get the Appraisal, which is the diagnostic tool that we've created. And then they get a training that is the department level head map or the map for all 8 indicators, the grounding, the relational health, the internal things that are happening, all of the things that we cover on our wheel, they get the roadmap for that with our training. And then they have the appraisal tool that they can continue to use. And they don't need, after we walk them through that and hold their hands for a little bit, we can leave them to it and they can continue to use that every quarter, however often they want to. We've given them something really strong to continue
Now,
to use.
is that appraisal tool a team appraisal or an individual appraisal?
So it is an individual appraisal, but we would like to encourage I like the term snapshot. Let's start with a team and have a team work through it together. But it is individualistic. Each individual has to take the appraisal. But then when they do it together as a team, it becomes a pretty sustainable tool going forward.
How do they do it together as a team?
Well, the training would be as a team.
Got it. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's a day of team training or a couple hours of team training.
Couple hours, yeah.
And then each one individually does this. And
does the appraisal.
Right. Okay, great. How is this different? Because like when you start saying team and appraisal, people are going to think year of end review, performance evaluation, performance appraisals. How is this different than that expectation?
Well, I think performance appraisals are based on what are you bringing? What have you done for me lately? What are you bringing to the organization? What are your metrics? Have you met your, the
goals,
the goals and all of those things? And just to be really clear, not a fan of the yearly reviews.
Why not?
I think it's a very antiquated, unfair system for deciding whether people get rewarded based on some. So I'm a big fan of doing reviews every 3 months, but to do a yearly review is often unfair because oftentimes what you find is you really start looking at just the last 2 months. It's hard to remember what a person did the other 10 months. And so if they had a great 10 months and then the last 2 months is hard, they tend to get more, that's the human capability, to sit and say, well, I'm not going to give you your full whatever reward because the last 2 months but then they had a glowing 10 months before that we can't seem to recall, or the other way around where they had a terrible 10 months and then the last 2 months they've pulled it out where the other people on the team are going, what? All year we've been so it's not a great measuring tool, in my opinion. I think it can be done better. I think we can break it down and do it quarterly. Also, I think it does better for people to say, hey, and also Gen Z sort of saying this, if we give them a little more credit, is if I'm going to give you this 3 months, here's your metric. That's more humanly doable to say, okay, for 3 months, I can hit those targets. But then to set up a person and say, hey, for 12 months, I need you to hit all of these targets. The human spirit goes, oh my God, it deflates. But you say for 3 months, here's your target. The human spirit goes, it hits something in the human spirit to be like, oh, I can run after that. And then there's a reward at this, or here's what's going to happen for you when you hit the 3 month mark. It's just, it's deflating to the human spirit to say, if you can do this for a full 12 months, here's the carrot at the end. I'm just not a fan. This episode of the Healthy Hurried Human podcast is sponsored by Midlife Thrives. Midlife Thrives is for women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s navigating perimenopause and menopause. If you've felt the energy dips, the mood swings, or the brain fog that make you wonder if you're losing yourself, you're not alone. Midlife Thrives is here to help give you clarity, resources, and a supportive circle of women who get it. No quick fixes, no shame, just some real guidance for real life. Learn more and connect at midlifethrives.com because thriving in midlife isn't optional, it's your new standard.
Yeah, Marcus Buckingham has had some words and opinions on that, which I do not have them in the forefront to quote, but you're not alone with the people I follow and the other people out there talking about performance reviews and how really all they're geared at is kind of to tick a box to say this type of thing. And if they're not used throughout the year, then they are not effective.
Yeah.
And but I think it probably started with, well, how do we award bonuses? Certain jobs, it's easier to see production wise if you're producing for the company. I know one of the companies that I've worked with, they recently went to more of a shared profit bonus structure where everybody gets a bonus or nobody gets a bonus type of thing. And it's not, so everybody's working towards the goal. And then if the company is successful at the end of the year, people get bonuses and how it's divvied up. And that was a maturing of the process where they had two divisions, two levels in the company that had very clear metrics on how they got their bonuses. Very, very clear metrics. Everybody else, it was subjective. And the managers decided how much to give people. So actually, there are 3 departments that were very clear. You meet this metric, you get this percentage of a bonus. But everybody else, it was just kind of loosey-goosey. And that's
always dangerous.
Well, it created a them and us type of separation. And it ended up putting a lot of importance on those 3 departments. And then everyone else was deemed support staff and lesser than. And that's not great for culture building. But the attitude was they're the ones that are actually making the money. And it's like, well, you strip the support team away. It's
right. I'm not a fan of that. And then, I've worked in companies where, your salespeople were getting bonuses, but the people who their job wasn't connected to that weren't getting bonuses.
The hardest thing that we have is the fact that there were people who had that one of the levels, they were on call all the time. They really did have more pressure. They had much more riding on them. They failed. Everyone failed. There is an acknowledgement of the fact that there is some form of a hierarchy and a job structure. Anyway, we're getting off track here about what you want to talk about. But so sometimes you can't get away from the people's jobs hold more weight and more importance. And that's why they're rewarded at a higher level. But should that just be their pay and the bonus is different? There's a lot there.
Well, and I think too, we are way off here, but just to tie this up, I think too, I've had more of a struggle with tying bonuses. I understand where it came from and why it's there, but tying bonuses to review, I think there can be other rewards besides. It's look, we could separate bonuses because I understand you can't pay, maybe the way you're set up fiscally, you can't pay it out to the end of the year, but it's we should be rewarding all through the year based on things that are being met. And
some companies do that. They do quarterly. They do quarterly bonuses. And I think the hardest thing is, I worked with a company who decided that they were going to have end of the year bonuses, and then they were going to do their evaluations 4 months later, so that they were not tied together. It. And mentally, that doesn't work. People don't think that way. It doesn't work.
You're correct, but it's based
the lower level worker. It just thinks that's just they don't buy it.
We got to boil it down to. We need reviews regularly because there should be checks and balances on, are we making, obviously that needs to happen, but where companies fall short, and this, we've been to some talks about this, is they fall short in showing worker appreciation and meeting that appreciation across the different languages. You and I know that there's multiple languages that just like there's love languages and there's learning languages, there's different languages of appreciation, and companies fall short in knowing 100%. How to do that. And that it's not always about money. Is obviously we're working for money and we need the money, but many workers will say, I would really like to be, I'd like to know that they appreciate me, and there's several other ways that they can show that they appreciate me.
Here's one of the ways that I think the Healthy Hurried Human Lab.
That's what we're talking about.
Right. Here's one of the ways I think the Healthy Hurried Human Lab helps with this is because it's not a team project, because actually it's saying this is about you, your individual, it really is calling out and seeing people as an individual person that has this whole wheel of priorities, of importances, of nuances that affect them in their job. And it is really, truly allowing them to say, you're an individual. And let's see where's Katherine right now? Where's Michelle right now? Where's Gianni right now? It is giving a acknowledgement from the leadership that I am a person. I am a person with all of these 8 issues, just like you are a person with all of these 8 issues. It's almost not necessarily leveling the playing field, but it's acknowledging that at the end of the day, we're all humans. And we all have value, and we all have pressure, and we all have ways that we show up big and small.
Tired teams don't just need another training, they need transformation. The Healthy Hurried Human Lab helps organizations build emotionally fit, resilient, and connected teams that perform better without burning out. This interactive training goes beyond theory, combining organizational psychology with personal appraisal that helps every participant understand how their mental, emotional, and relational habits show up at work. When people grow, companies thrive. Book your Healthy Hurried Human Lab for your teams today at foxygenconsulting.com and start creating healthier, more human workplace.
You know, you and I have had this great experience where we know a lot of wonderful people who are teachers, and they made an impact on our lives. We had the same teachers that made the same impact on our lives that changed us forever. Mm-hmm. And there are many days when I think, have I achieved enough in life? Have I done enough in life? And let's say there are 5 people who can say, Katherine changed my life for the better. And like, I can hold that in my heart and know that my efforts and what I did changed someone's life. I saw them where they were. I met them where they were. I had the right words to encourage them or to help them. And that is so satisfying. But let's say you, who have had, decades in the industry of helping people, you might have 250,000 people that you've helped and impacted.
I don't think it's that much.
And so, and that they can say, Michelle changed my life for the better and helped me, whatever. It doesn't negate the fact that, is my life worth it if it was only 5? But to those 5 people, it's everything.
Right.
And so there comes this level playing field of, you may be a CEO who has all of the pressure of everyone in an organization on you and a board you answer to. And that's a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of responsibility. And you need to wield that well, but you hopefully have strong enough shoulders to handle it. But you may be that one worker on the floor who notices that there's a box that missed the UPS truck. And for that small company, that box is everything. And you go out of your way, you drive it to the UPS store, you double time it to get there, you pay the extra out of your own department to make sure it gets there. Like, when you see a customer or a client as important as your top client, that's game changer right there to people. And when we can get to the place where we realize that every person has all of these pressures, whether they have a job that's deemed lower on the scale of importance, or, because, they're not a billionaire or whatever. Like, when we treat each other with favor and respect and kindness and value, mm-hmm. game changer. And I think that the Healthy Hurried Human Lab does what your ultimate goal is when you created this company, is to get at every level people to be seen as individual humans. And when you start thinking that way about everyone in your organization, you instantly begin to elevate everybody to you bring people up to, we are all humans. We all have these same pressures. They may be different levels. And we don't say only these 3 pockets in our company have the most pressure.
That's right. This is one of the things, and I can say this with authority or assurance, that we've created a product that, what I know is that there are hurried humans in every workplace. I can say that with 100% assurance. Every workplace holds at least one, but probably almost all, hurried humans. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we have created a product that can measure the pressure that employees are feeling emotionally and mentally. We can measure it. And when you get measurement, you get clarity. When you have clarity, we can offer training, and when you have the training, you know how to address it. I like to refer to the Healthy Hurried Human lab training and appraisal as the blood pressure cuff. It's the blood pressure cuff of your organization. And to me, I have to ask the question, why wouldn't you want to know that? Because, so I'm going to tell a little story here. You know, I love analogies and I love stories, and I tend to learn better. But over the summer, I got very sick with salmonella poisoning. But for the first 3 days, we did not know that's what was wrong with me. And I kept saying that I had neurovirus. I just had the stomach bug. But usually with stomach bug, after a day or two, you start to see improvement. Well, I wasn't. And it wasn't until my husband insisted I go to a local urgent care where I was going, they're not going to help me because nobody treats stomach bug. They tell you to go home and drink plenty of fluids, right? So I go, and the thing that told them this was way more serious than neurovirus was the blood pressure cuff. Nobody ever puts, I've never done this, and you know I'm kind of into the healthcare stuff and well-being. I would never have put blood pressure cuff as what tells you that something, when you're throwing up, when there's vomit, like I don't think blood pressure cuff is going to acknowledge and tell us what's wrong. I always, I know how to read a blood pressure cuff. And I didn't realize that was going to be the thing that told them, oh, she's in serious trouble, that ended up, to a hospital stay, and them leaning towards this is way more than just neurovirus. There's something seriously going on here. And it goes back to the blood pressure cuff. We've created with the Healthy Hurried Human lab and training and the appraisal is we've created a blood pressure cuff for whether it's a team, whether it's an entire department, whether it could be for the entire organization. We've created a blood pressure cuff that will then let us know where are the things stemming from, and then how can you address it? And guess what? We have the ways that you can address it. So that's what I love about
it.
You are looking for something.
Well, also shout out to my mom.
To the Wall Street Journal.
Again, Wall Street Journal did an article on December 1st called The Longest Tenured Employees in the United States. And they had this whole big centerfold just looking at different employees that have been the longest tenured ones in the United States and that are still working strong, and what they did. And just shout out to them recognizing that. I thought that was a beautiful thing to do, about looking at, sometimes we talk about layoffs and distancing ourselves, like all the new changes, and people are becoming obsolete and the loss of industry knowledge. And I like the fact to know that, like, really at the end of the day, we also need to recognize the fact that there is there are people who have longevity in businesses and stay, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So, you had asked before how, and I'm just going to bring this up, how does the Healthy Hurried Human lab training and appraisal, how's it different than yearly reviews? Yearly reviews, I think, hopefully we answered it, but I want to just kind of give a shorter answer, which is that's based on metrics. This is the health of
based on metrics in relationship to the company.
That's right. This is the Healthy Hurried Human lab, and the appraisal is based on the individual, your human capital, and how are they doing, and it helps you be able to see it in real time and then address it. They're going to need this when they suspect something is off but can't quite locate the source. I mean, that happen. I feel like people are pretty intuitive, but sometimes can't label it, and it's not clarifying for them. If you don't trust employee surveys because answers feel vague or sugar coated, They're going to need this as a neutral outsider who can't interpret human indicators without bias. I feel like that's an important one. And you were talking about that when I think employees are very quick to feel that there's a bias, whether there is or not. Employees,
there is a bias. There is definitely a bias because,
well, we talk about politics at work all the time,
but it's also just because of the role in the company and the org chart that literally has it created like we're climbing up into,
so
the heavenlies or something.
This is important for teams that are showing tension and maybe have low follow through. This is great when there's been a new leader who's inheriting a department or an organization prepping for strategic planning or restructuring. Maybe there's early signs of disconnect or burnout. There's all kinds of reasons. We could sit here probably for 2 episodes and talk about all the reasons and ways or purposes for having us come in. But all I have to say is if you want to have the blood pressure cuff of knowing what the pressure is that your employees are facing, whether it's a team, a group of individuals, whatever, we can measure that for you. And then we can give you clarity on how to make it better.
I think that's a great analogy.
So thank you for joining us on this episode of the Healthy Hurried Human podcast. See you next time. The Healthy Hurried Human podcast is brought to you by Foxygen Consulting and a handful of silent sponsors who believe in this work and quietly keep us going. We see you, we thank you, and we are glad that you're part of this journey.